We're here with Alex Svanevik from Nansen. He's the CEO, and he's here to tell us about Nansen as a product and what it does for traders, both on the retail and the institutional side. Alex, thanks for joining us. Could you start with introducing Nansen a little bit, and then we'll jump into the questions?
Yeah, thanks for having me. So Nansen basically helps on-chain investors surface the signal. And what that means is you can discover tokens and NFTs in Nansen. You can perform due diligence to figure out, hey, is this a token I should buy? Should I avoid it? And so on. And you can also track what the smart money is doing on-chain. So for people who want to get a sense of what the most profitable traders are doing, you can monitor that in our product and either just copy trade them straight up or just learn from the masters on how they are making money by trading on chain. So we've kind of evolved as a product to get more focused on that on-chain investing use case. We also work with a lot of chains to make sure that they get the transparency that they need to attract users and investors. But the primary focus overall is to help on-chain investors win.
You're saying that your customers involve both the retail side and the institutional side. Can you tell me a little bit how that's made your services change?
Yeah, I mean, I would say we are generally more focused on the retail side, but it's kind of, crypto is a weird market because retail often has a lot of money, frankly, in crypto. So you can have kind of whales or quite sophisticated individual investors or even small crypto funds run by 2-3 people who frankly make a lot of money by being smart on chain. And so we don't really cater to call it like the Wall Street type institutions. Like we're very focused on crypto natives and the on-chain investor. So, over the years, we started with the on-chain retail investor. Then we sort of expanded into, let's look at other segments. And now we've kind of gone back to the on-chain investor because that's our core focus. And most of us at Nansen kind of fit that user segment ourselves too. So we're kind of scratching our own itch. But if you think about it from the perspective of kind of crypto native institutions, right? Like liquid token funds, think of like Defiance or Spartan and so on, Pantera, like these are the types of customers we also serve, but we have a very strict focus on crypto natives overall.
So it's kind of a tool that you built for yourself to serve your own needs.
Pretty much. And I think that is generally like a decent strategy for like building a product because you're scratching your own itch. And, crypto is very unique in the sense that it sort of empowers individual investors too. I think in traditional finance, you kind of need to have access to proprietary data and so on, which can be very expensive. And with crypto, the cool thing is that you can see what everyone's doing on chain. And so it's, you're not just looking at what people are talking about, but actually like what they are doing on chain. And so that makes it a little bit different from TradFi, and it sort of opens up many opportunities to, in some ways, make it more meritocratic. That's at least how I think about it. Like the amount of money you can make is sort of just limited by your own intelligence and effort and time. And it's not so much about like, do you have the right connections or the right access to certain proprietary information? And so that's overall like the premise that we built the product around.
Speaking of everything being visible on chain, how does that feed into like your customers' privacy? Do you have a role to play in educating people about privacy, and what's your strategy there?
The role we've taken so far mostly has been, on this kind of two things that are somewhat adjacent to what we do. One is to perhaps educate people on their own privacy. The other one on the flip side is to help entities, corporations, exchanges, and so on be more transparent, which is kind of the inverse almost of that. So we probably focused more on the latter. On podcasts and so on, I've talked a little bit about the pitfalls of being on chain and how people can like inadvertently dox themselves and so on. Like I have a lot of stories. For example, I remember one user who contacted us and said, hey, I've bought my wife's name as an ENS address, and now that's on this address. Can you remove it? And I had to explain, like, actually, ENSs are like etched into the blockchain. It's immutable. And like, even if we remove it from Nansen, it still will be on the blockchain. So it doesn't actually help that much. But yeah, I mean, maybe we could do more like thought leadership or write blog posts or something around this. We could maybe, it would be cool, a cool like hackathon idea or something to almost like get a score of how doxed you are. Like if you input your address, you can use our profiler product to at least see what others can see about your address. For example, which counterparties you've traded with and things like that. So there's a little bit of that already, but it's not something we spent a lot of time on. I think what many investors kind of come to realize over time is that it's almost like an inevitable part of investing on chain, that at some point, you're going to like make a transaction between two addresses, and that's going to reveal or like give a clue on your identity. So I kind of think of it as like, it's just the name of the game. It's the nature of trading on chain.
How does Nansen help cut through the noise and alert you to like a meaningful market movement?
So on the alerting side, we have a product called Smart Alerts, where you can configure on-chain alerts that get routed to your Telegram, your Discord, or your Slack. And you can set up kind of any type of rule you want. So whether it's based on large tokens, whether it's based on like aggregate flows. And again, we have like customer stories where people have saved a lot of money because they've been able to exit a liquidity pool, like right before Terra, for example, collapsed. We also have dashboards, right, which is kind of what most people know Nansen for. And so you can go to Token Screener and see which tokens have the most smart money inflow. So which tokens are being bought up by smart money. You can then perform due diligence in token god mode, where you look at a specific token and you can see who are the holders, what are the top funds or the top exchanges that hold this token. In aggregate, how many smart money addresses are buying the token, and how many of the tokens do they own. So those are some of the core features. We're also rolling out a new version of our portfolio tracker, so you can track all your holdings across all the chains that you use, including Bitcoin, Solana, Tron, lots of non-EVM chains, in addition to like all the core EVMs like Ethereum and the primary L2s. We already, have had this as a separate web app, but we're rolling it into the core product, and that's going to be released this quarter. And then a big thing we're shipping in a couple of weeks. It's already been shipped to our professional subscribers, but we're shipping it to all users later this month. Is Solana support more broadly, like analytics for Solana, which is something that's been requested for a very long time. Yeah, and then I think, like I was saying, smart money is this kind of important concept at Nansen, where we try to basically rate how smart different wallets are so that you can follow them. And we're also basically revamping the whole smart money methodology to make sure that smart money truly is the smartest money on chain. And so there are going to be some updates in the next couple of months on that front as well.
So smart money as opposed to lucky money.
Yeah, it's an interesting, you kind of want some kind of consistency. So you'd look at something like win rate, right? You want to have, if you want to copy trade someone, you probably want to have a high win rate, meaning like the percentage of trades that end in a positive P&L. But occasionally you have sort of almost like venture style outcomes where someone does one good investment and it goes like 1,000x, and maybe you want to follow those too. But it's probably better to follow the ones with a higher win rate.
That's kind of the short-term product overview. What's your long-term goal for like the next 3 to 5 years?
I think there are like two potential paths for Nansen. One I think of as a horizontal path, which I think of as like serving lots of different user segments with information, like on-chain information. And then there's a vertical path, which is only focusing on the on-chain investor and going full stack on the on-chain investor. And that means eventually we are going to have to also help investors trade with Nansen in our UI. And so we should probably have a conversation with the Matcha team, because we're not going to build our own DEX aggregator or our own DEX in-house. But I think that's kind of where we inevitably will end up. Like, my view is that the two sort of core categories of products in crypto are information products and then execution products. And those two will, in the next couple of years, increasingly start merging. And so my view is that because the best price for any asset is going to live on chain, that creates a big opportunity for information products to also hook into those prices and the settlement and the execution. We sort of hinted at this a little bit with staking. We recently acquired a staking company called Stake With Us. And so you can now stake through Nansen, but that's not trading, right? But I think the trading part is what comes next. I like to use the acronym APE. So think of it as like you get alpha, portfolio tracking, and execution in one product. So, we sometimes refer to this as the super app or the super ape, if you will. And that's kind of where I think inevitably we will end up. I don't know what the time horizon is, but a lot of it depends on the sort of maturity of execution infrastructure. Because like I said, we are definitely not going to build in-house a DEX or a DEX aggregator or, routing technology. We will want to partner with someone on that. And like our core, like what we are really good at is surfacing the signal for investors. And so we think that's why people come to Nansen. That's why they use our product. And so if they get alpha from us and they track their portfolio with us and they have the best coverage of information on chain, for every asset, for every entity they want to look at, it seems natural that why wouldn't you just click the buy button in our UI as well, right? So that's kind of where I think it eventually leads. And I'm sure like we're not the only product thinking in those terms. The question is really like, is it easier for an execution product to add in the information piece, or is it easier for the information products to add in the execution piece? But I think, that's a really interesting intersection of those two categories.
Removing that friction for users is definitely super important, and that's going to be the winning strategy. Thank you for joining us, and we'll catch up again in a few months to see how it's been going with the launch of your new products.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Did you know I used to work I was a consultant for 0x in 2019?
Oh, I did not.
So yeah, I'm a huge fan of 0x and the Matcha product as well. I use it a lot myself.